All right, back to what we do best, and that is fire up about Australian politics with just 59 days to go until a federal election. Now, that date will get a lot quicker than we expect because an election could be called as soon as the week after the budget, which is, of course, up next week. Remember, the 17th of May is when this term officially runs out, so the clock is ticking. 59 days left of Anthony Albanese's first term as Prime Minister. Will Australia send him back with his own majority? Unlikely. Minority? Probably. But there is an outside chance, and again, I'll show you the numbers that say he could be this one-term wonder, but we'll all find out together. What did the Prime Minister do today? Well, of course, he's governing. He's not campaigning, apart from the fact that he was campaigning today in Queensland. He made an announcement that, yes, again, costs billions of dollars. Now, remember, the budget deficit will be confirmed next week, meaning every dollar that you have heard spent and promised by this bloke is on the credit card. $2.5 billion, but the hitch is you've got to build the arena he wants built for the Olympics, not one maybe Queenslanders want.
We have $3.4 billion on top of the Brisbane Arena funding.
Billions of dollars that he does not have. Billions of dollars that you are going to have to pay when it comes to debt. But who cares? There's an election in just, 59 days? Of course, this is a trend from the Prime Minister. We have kept an eye on every spending announcement he has made, and this is just a few since January.
A $7.2 billion announcement today. $5 million. $10 million. $200 million. $3 billion. $350 million. $2 billion. $37 million. $842 million. $2.4 billion. $8.5 billion. $4.8 billion. $1 billion. $3.4 billion.
It is just so easy to spend other people's money, isn't it? Again, deficit next week will be confirmed. Then we go off to an election with every dollar promised being one we cannot afford. The best part now of $40 billion that he's promised so far this year. As for the alternative Prime Minister, Peter Dutton, out and about today, trying to focus on national security, suggesting that there should be changes to citizenship tests to make sure that we don't let anti-Semites into the country.
Our argument is that we have millions of people who have migrated to our country who are amazing Australians, and we should celebrate more, frankly, in our country, the great migrant story. But we should make it clear that when people come here to our country, we want people to adhere to the rule of law.
Well, I think the question could be even broader than the one in and around anti-Semitism. What about this one? When faced with a choice of the laws of the land or the laws of your faith, which one do you think takes precedence? Anyone who suggests anything but the laws of the land, no. You don't go past go, you don't get $200, you don't get family reunion. Now, let's talk about the run-up to the election. 59 days away. When that election is called, that fast becomes 33. So we're not going to go the full 59 days. But as you know, we spend most of our time on this program trying to give you some numbers, trying to give you some data, trying to give you some insights that are not just polls, but also deeper information that is behind them. Now, we often talk about the gender divide that exists in Australian politics, and it is particularly pronounced at this election. But when you have a look at the overall split of the number of voters, it is very close to 50-50. Now, yes, it's about 400,000 more female voters than male. For the first time, people are able to identify themselves as neither of those genders. They do have those numbers and they do put them up on the AEC. But for the point of clarity, 18 million people get to vote, 9.1 female, 8.7 male. So when you hear and read polls that women have turned on the Labor Party, well, you start to think, oh, well, there's no way back here. Well, as you know, the two-party preferred polling is all based off what they guess is going to be preferences. If the One Nation vote is as high as we've seen it in the past little while, of going up from 5% at the last election to maybe 7 or 9%, those preferences, well, nobody knows where they end up. If the majority of them end up with the Liberal Party, then they can end up winning. But for now, the first time, the majority of the polls is now showing Labor with its nose in front. News poll, 51-49 in favour of the coalition. The Freshwater poll has the Liberal National Party just in front of the ALP. The Essential poll, which does have undecided, is 47 apiece. piece. The Redbridge poll, now that's of course the people put together with our mates Cos Samaras, and we talked to him on state of the race. That is now 51-49 in favour of Labor. The Liberal Party still leading with the bookies. However, the numbers are starting to come in, particularly with the Morgan poll, which is the outlier at Labor at 54 and a bit to 45 and a bit. Which now brings us to trying to do a little bit of guesswork about this gender divide. If obviously there are slightly more females than males, they vote slightly more for the Labor Party than the Coalition, then obviously Labor, the Greens, the Teals, all the rest of them, they end up with their nose in front. But you need to see the gulf here, because the gulf, yes, does exist, that with women, apparently, the Labor Party is leading 49 to 44% in terms of the two-party preferred. That's not insignificant, it's 5 points. But what about if I showed you one that was 51-45 in terms of men preferring the Liberal Party over the Labor Party? Now, that basically puts us very close to a 50-50 election, a little here, a little there. But what's really fascinating is when you start to do the sums here on women of a certain age, men of a certain age, and are they going to do what is expected of them by the media, the political parties, or their friends? Do they do what happened at the last election? Do they do something completely different? Now, remember, in the United States, there are more female voters than male. They don't have the compulsory system, which means, of course, it is a bit of a guessing game. And Kamala Harris did have a very significant lead with women over Donald Trump. But Donald Trump had an even bigger lead with men than Kamala Harris did with men, which meant he was able to win all of those different states. He was able to win the popular vote. He won the presidency. Their system is not our system. But this is important to note, that yes, there is a gulf about which way women are going to go, but there is a bigger gulf about which way men are going to go, according to these polls. You're also going to hear an awful lot about age in all of this, because for the first time, people under the age of 50 are going to outnumber the people over the age of 50, or should I say people under the age of 44 versus people over the age of 44. But interestingly, again, this is a basic razor-thin difference. 100,000 people between men and women, that is the difference between voters under the age of 44. Everyone under the age of 44 is a millennial or Gen Z or Gen Alpha, but Gen Alpha are too young to vote right now. And interestingly, the point that I just made about the difference between men and women that was coming out of the Essential poll, one where if the electoral roll is basically 50-50, you're up here, but you're down there when it comes to men, well, this could be an issue. And they have identified in their data young men. Young men seem to be going further right than their previous colleagues in the younger demographics. This is referred to as the lad vote, or as I may say, da boys. And it's here. Now, the person who does the poll for the Essential organisation, I believe, spoke to news.com.au today and says, I think many young men, there's a sense about not being seen in the public discourse much. He then puts this together with the Trump factor. There's a receptiveness to the Trump style of leadership. It may not even be specific around policies, but more how he leads. There's a real cultural movement in the manosphere which Trump was able to tap into. So, for those that are counting the grains of sand on the beach, this is going to matter, because it's not just a split of male and female. It's not just a split of age up and down. There are going to be scenarios where you're going to have some surprises. There may well be a surprise with the left-wing vote in women over 55, but there also might be a surprise vote in the under 44s men. Now, I'll save you the homework because I went and did it today. I am in the process of trying to work out what the electoral roll looks like, which is updated each and every month in all of the swing seats. Are there more men than women? These, again, start to give us the picture. If the polls are right, and I know I'm putting too much faith in the polls, but if the polls are right, and we are now starting to slice the atom as many times as we currently are, it starts to give us an insight. Yes, the headlines are moving away from where they were a few months ago, moving back towards the government, but is there a secret vote out there We don't want to be surprised on election night. We always want you to know what is going to happen or most likely happen. Nothing is inevitable, but I also don't want anything to be a surprise.